Hi everyone, it's good to see you. My name's Forrest, and today we're going to talk about The Godfather, the Dawn's Edition. So this is the PlayStation 3 version of the game, and there are many different versions of this game made. It was originally a PS2 title and came out in 2006, and then this version in '07 for the PlayStation 3. And there were a number of different versions of this game. This is basically an upscaled version of the PS2 one. There's also one called the Black Hand Edition, which I believe was exclusive to the Wii. And then there was a PSP version, and so on and so forth. It's interesting that the game got made, being that the movie had come out 35 years prior. At the time, I think a lot of these licensed movie games were they're starting to hit their apex, and you're starting to get really good quality out of them. And then you tie that in with things like Mafia and Grand Theft Auto becoming popular. And so the developers, EA, working with Paramount, said, hey, this would be a great opportunity for us to kind of dive into that genre and space. And so this is the game they came up with. The packaging, very Godfather-y. I actually was thinking this color scheme is very similar to what you get on Metal Gear Solid 4 with the black and the red and the whites. Or I guess in this instance, a little silver. But even then, we get on the inside here the game and of course a little booklet. And the booklet's not anything too interesting. It covers some of the different skills and things you'll do throughout the game. It tells you a little bit about the background of the world that you're in. And so we can kind of dive into that, the story piece. And the story aspect is basically you play as a guy named Aldo. And when he's a little kid, he lives in some of the Corleone's family's territories. And his father is killed. And that kind of starts this journey of a relationship with Vito. And when you're older, you kind of get pulled into this world and become part of the Corleone family. And throughout your time in the world, you're spending a lot of it going around and extorting and bribing businesses to take protection of the Corleone family, which will raise your respect and help you level up and get you more cash. And you'll also play story missions. And a lot of these story missions will revolve around things that happen throughout the first movie. So one of the scenes that a lot of people talk about with this is the whole horsehead scene. And if you know the movie, you know what I'm talking about. You play as one of the characters in the behind the scenes who goes and actually gets this horse and said head and kind of places it and whatnot. And this is essentially how the entire story mission plays out. Is you're kind of a person who's part of the gang and the family and taking part in a lot of the things happening behind the scenes of the movie as it kind of plays out. It's pretty fun and exciting to see the story. Very funny in a way to kind of see it all rendered into PlayStation 2 graphics and style as opposed to what we know in the movie itself. But enjoyable nonetheless. And outside of that, you really just have this open world for you to explore and, again, extort businesses, take down warehouses, fight other families. There's 3 other families in the game where you can go across various parts of the city, whether that's Little Italy or Brooklyn or Hell's Kitchen, and confront them and confront their businesses and wipe them out. So the nice thing about it is that all this content is really optional. You can play the story missions or you can do the side content. The side content's going to help you level up again and kind of get better skills and, of course, going to help you through the story missions. But it's all optional. It's just there if you want to go and experience it, which I think you're going to want to because it is a lot of fun just to go from place to place and do this and experience what the game has to offer. When you're traversing, you can drive vehicles. They sound great. There's a lot of stuff happening around the city and around you. And it definitely paints this dirty era of New York in a lot of ways. There's trash fires going. There's gang members robbing banks and police and shootouts running around the city. And it really feels like a dynamic place that is happening around you that is not waiting for you to do something for it to react. And so you'll hear this off in the background. And the sound really helps create that world that you're in. And aside from that, I think really the soundtrack is orchestral. It has its callbacks to the movies, etc. It really does its job of kind of bringing you into the world. In the world building itself and in the graphics, this was originally a PlayStation 2 game, and so a year later when it comes out on the PlayStation 3, um, looking back, it kind of looks interesting. I think the PS2 era developers had a number of techniques by which they could hide, low-res textures or far off in the distance areas through lowering draw distance and using fog and other techniques of darkness to hide some of these aspects. But in the PS3 version, what they've done is it seems like they've removed most of that, because a lot of the city design seems, it's getting dated. It's really getting dated. In the 3D model of the cars, that style is very different from what the texturing of the buildings look like. The buildings will look like they took low-res versions of realistic buildings, and the vehicles look like these 3D polygonal models which have been lifted from like a cheap mobile game or something like that. I don't know how to describe it. One of those goofy kind of fake mobile ads you see. And so that's kind of funny in itself. But if you look past those things, you really get to a place where there's some fantastic gameplay and a great experience to have. You start by building your character and you create them. Everything from the way they look to the way they dress to who they are. And that's really fun way to start the game. And then from there, again, you start the story missions, you learn some tutorials, and then you go about into the world doing your thing, whether that's side missions or this side, the main missions. And what that essentially looks like is, how do you start a business? Well, you can go in and there will be a business owner there and you can talk to them. Sometimes you can talk to them and you'll get your way and say, hey, pay us protection money and we'll take care of you. Other times, they're going to need to be convinced, so to speak. And so when you walk in, there'll be a little pressure bar, and you can do things from grab them, flash a gun at them, attack their customers, destroy their business, their merchandise, etc. And these things are going to progressively build that bar to a point where they say, okay, I give in. But adversely, between that and the rest of the bar, you can gain more money, but you could push them to the limit where they say, okay, no more, I'm going to fight back. And at that point, you kind of lose your opportunity to extort them. And upon doing so, once you're successful, you'll get a payout. And then in a lot of cases, there's going to be rackets or things going on in the background of these businesses where you can go through the back door and you'll find mafiosos, or you'll find a casino, and then you can buy those out, and you can progressively increase the amount of income you get each week as part of the payouts that these businesses provide to you. But otherwise, again, through these processes, you're attacking the other mafia families. This can build vendettas. Every single character has a name and is a person. And so when you kill them, it'll change the rankings of the families. You might spark a mob war wherein you're traveling the city and there are mafia members of these other families coming after you. And it makes the world feel so dynamic and open and just exciting in so many ways that I think those experiences are worth the side content alone, so you can have the fun with it and experience everything the game has to offer. And there's a lot of weapons to use throughout that. All your standard fare from Tommy guns, shotguns, a number of different snub nose and magnum revolvers and pistols that really make the game fun from these views when you're dealing with all these mafia guys as well. Otherwise, that's a big part of what you'll be doing throughout the game. The on movement process, that's very clean and simple. Driving cars actually feels really great. There's a nice kind of swing delay in the camera as you turn and do things, so I enjoy that quite a bit. And from the get-go, you can traverse to any part of the world, any part of the city, and go see it. Albeit, they all kind of look a little bit the same. They do have some character that makes them a bit different, but otherwise, you can clean this game up in maybe 15 to 20 hours if you're doing most of the content. And I think you're going to get a lot of enjoyment out of it. It's a very unique game, and it came at a unique time because the generations were changing, and so we had a number of different versions. One of the things that makes this version really exciting is getting to bring members along with you. So as you rank up and get along in the game far enough, you can ask members of the family to come join you on these missions. And it's really fun when you have like 4 or 5 guys running around with you, shooting people, wreaking havoc. You really start to feel like there is a true progression to your rise in the Corleone family throughout the course of the game. I do find it funny that you're the one person kind of taking over the city for the whole family. You rank up through the story missions. So if you never did the story missions or just the side content, you could have taken over everything for Corleone and still just been like a soldier. But of course that'll change over the course of the game. So that's a lot of what I want to say about the gameplay. I think from a replayability factor, there is enough to do here where you're going to want to enjoy a lot of that side content after you beat the game. But otherwise, of this era, there are so many of these GTA clones or open world games, and even generations after that follow, for you to play around in and explore, that I think this one's really worth the experience of giving a run through once. And otherwise, unless you have a lot of nostalgia for it or really want to experience it again, it's hit or miss. I think there's a lot of interesting factors to this one that make it fun to play, though there are some elements of it, such as its age and, again, that strange transition generationally, which holds it back from being everything that of this era it could have been. At the time when it came out in 2007, we were getting some of the new franchises that would take over. One that comes to mind is Uncharted. I mean, the first Uncharted game was coming out in the same year, and when you pair the fidelity of this up to that, it's really clear that the developers could have taken a little more time to get more out of this game using the cell architecture and the power of the PlayStation 3. So overall, fun game, more innovative in a lot of ways in its gameplay than I was anticipating, but kind of held back at the same time because I'm thinking of this in PlayStation 3 lens when really you're playing a PS2 game. If I was to tailor my expectations back a bit more, I think I could have gotten more out of it. That's all I wanted to say. I hope y'all have a great rest of your day. And what did you think? Did you play The Godfather or the Don's Edition? Let me know your thoughts. All right. Until then, take care.